Today it's the last week of April and the weather is beautiful, so I've gone out for a walk in the centre. And yes, I know I need a haircut. This is Bolotnaya Square where I am right now. And while I'm here, I'm going to answer some of the questions I've been receiving in my email inbox over the last few weeks, but haven't had the chance to reply to, haven't had the chance to make a full video on, or I'm not sure they warrant a full video. But if any of you are interested in any of these answers, you want to hear more, please let me know. All right, question number one. I heard it's impossible for a foreigner to get a SIM card in Russia now. Is that true? All right, so yes, getting a SIM card in Russia has become much more difficult for foreigners in 2025. As of January 1st, new regulations require that all non-citizens go through biometric registration to buy a SIM, and that means submitting fingerprints in person, usually at a bank branch. On top of that, you'll also need a SNILS, which is a Russian social security number, and an account on Gosuslugi, which is the country's internet public services portal. So for most short-term visitors, especially those who don't speak Russian, the process is now a massive headache. It's not impossible, but it's way more bureaucratic than it used to be. And there's a deadline too. If you already have a Russian SIM card, you have until July the 1st, 2025 to re-register it with your biometric data, or it'll cut off, it'll stop working. So for foreigners, what can you do instead? There are a few workarounds. Number one, use roaming on your existing SIM card, foreign SIM card. It's the easiest option, but of course that can get expensive fast. Number two, buy an international eSIM before you arrive. Those can give you mobile data in Russia, and they're normally activated online through an app. It won't give you a Russian phone number, but you will get internet and you can be online. And number three is just rely on Wi-Fi. Most hotels, cafes, shopping centres, even metro stations in big cities like Moscow or St. Petersburg have solid free Wi-Fi. It's not always very fast, and sometimes it does require a Russian phone number to log in, but it will normally do the job. So yeah, the whole thing has gotten a lot more bureaucratic, but it's not a brick wall. If you're only here for a short time, you'll probably be fine using one of those three alternatives. If you're staying longer, you might want to go through the full SIM card process, but just prepare for bureaucracy. But it's definitely doable. Question number two. Oh, and by the way, this here behind me is the new Tretyakov Gallery building. It's pretty nice, I think. Anyway, question number two. I've visited countries on Russia's unfriendly list. Will I be able to enter Russia without any issues? So, it's true, Russia does have a formal list of unfriendly countries, and that includes the US, the UK, most EU nations, and of course, Ukraine. But just being from one of those places or having visited them doesn't automatically mean that you'll be blocked from entering Russia. What it does mean, however, is that you're way more likely to get some extra questions when you cross the border. Speaking from personal experience here, I'm from a country on the unfriendly countries list. My passport has a Ukrainian stamp from a trip I took in the past, and I've been asked quite a few times about it. Things like, why were you there? How long did you stay? Do you have people you know there? Who did you meet? But it's never really caused an actual problem, no, more just a formality. It's like border agents just doing their job and ticking boxes. Now, if you've been to Ukraine since 2022, you might get a bit more attention, depending on the reason for your trip, how recently you went. But even then, it doesn't mean you're going to be refused entry to Russia. It just means they'll likely want to ask you a few more things. Just remember, none of this is personal to you. These are the standard practices. So my advice in this situation is be calm, answer clearly, have your story straight. They're not really trying to catch you out, they just want to make sure they know that you're not here for the wrong reasons. Most of the time, once you get through a few minutes of questioning about your travels, you'll be on your way. So in short, yes, you can still enter Russia, just don't be surprised if you get the full round of questions at passport control. Question number 3, and this is the one that's in the title of this video. How do LGBTQ plus people generally navigate daily life in Russia while staying safe? And are there still private or underground LGBTQ plus spaces? And how do people usually find them? So, the situation for LGBTQ plus people in Russia in 2025 is fairly straightforward. Even if it might sound strange from the outside, being gay or being part of the LGBTQ plus community in general isn't illegal. And there's no law saying you can't be who you are. But the thing is, it just can't be public. And I get that sounds weird because obviously you can't always tell who someone is just by looking at them. What the authorities here really mean is no rainbow flags, no kissing in public, no campaigns, no activism. Essentially nothing that could be interpreted as promoting LGBTQ plus in public life. And this all started back in 2013 with a law that was officially titled "For the Purpose of Protecting Children from Information Advocating a Denial of Traditional Family Values." And what that meant in practice, that was any so-called propaganda of non-traditional sexual relationships, basically anything LGBTQ plus related, was banned in all materials accessible to minors. And then that law was expanded again in 2022 to include all age groups, not just children. So it's now illegal to distribute or publicly display anything that portrays LGBTQ plus relationships in a positive light. And then in 2023, the Russian Supreme Court went a step further and labelled the international LGBT public movement as an extremist organisation, and that's a very, very serious label here in Russia. That means any group, symbol, event, or even online post that could be linked to LGBTQ plus advocacy could in theory lead to criminal charges. Yes, that includes the rainbow flag. So to put it crudely, the law in Russia is basically be gay, fine, but keep it private. Now, when it comes to LGBTQ plus spaces, of course, yes, they still exist. I actually asked a gay acquaintance of mine for this video, the texts are going to be on the side here, and he replied to me, officially all the gay clubs have closed, but in reality, plenty are still operating just under different names or with some sort of official theme. No one openly calls them gay clubs anymore, since that's not allowed by law. There are no posters, and the names give nothing away. But if you're in the loop, you'll find them no problem. Every now and then you'll hear about a police raid, usually at places that are well known within the scene. So yes, they still exist. It's all just very quiet and discreet now. So there you go, from the horse's mouth. He also gave me the names of some places, but I won't name any here for obvious reasons. So if you're planning to visit Russia and you're LGBTQ+, my advice to you would be very, very simple. Be discreet, avoid public displays of affection, don't bring symbols or slogans that might draw attention, and take some time to familiarize yourself with the current laws here in Russia. If you're coming as a tourist, it's unlikely you'll face any problems at all. Russia isn't in the habit of checking people's orientations at passport control. But if you're looking for community or nightlife, you'll need to be cautious and very selective about who you trust and where you go. Just a quick note, if you're enjoying this content, please consider becoming a paid member by clicking the join button down below this video. On YouTube, anything even slightly positive about Russia gets demonetized and buried by the algorithm, so your support is vital to keep this channel going. Plus, you'll get early access to videos and exclusive content. Thanks a lot. All right, question number 4. I want to move to Russia, but I can't find work. What should I do? All right, so my question back to anyone in this situation would be very, very simple. Do you want to be an English teacher? Because if the answer is yes, then you're in luck. That's by far the most common and the most straightforward path into legal employment for foreigners in Russia. To work legally, you'll need a work visa and a work permit, which usually has to be arranged and sponsored by your employer. The good news is that a lot of language schools, especially private ones in cities like Moscow, St. Petersburg, and other big cities around the country, are still very willing to sponsor foreign teachers. They handle most of the paperwork and walk you through the entire process. They'll hold your hand. Also, you don't always need formal teaching qualifications, but having something like TEFL or CELTA definitely helps. Experience is of course valued, but just being a native speaker is sometimes enough to get your foot in the door and get you a job. Now, if you don't want to teach English, my next question to you would be, do you speak Russian? If the answer is no, then I'd seriously recommend not trying to find a local job in Russia, at least not in the traditional sense. You see, most office jobs here in Moscow, especially in Russian companies, they require not just conversational Russian, but close to fluency. International firms that are still operating here in Russia after 2022 are looking for bilingual staff who can handle communication in both English and Russian. Even jobs that might seem international, like marketing or IT, they usually involve working closely with local teams and local clients, and of course local Russian regulations, so Russian language is essential. Now, that doesn't mean you can't move here though, because what a lot of people do, and is what I would recommend to you, if you're asking me this, is find remote work. Find that first, and then base yourself in Russia. If you're a freelancer, if you work in tech or design or writing or editing, anything like that, Russia can still be very comfortable and a very affordable place to live. The cost of living here, especially outside Moscow, is low by Western standards, and the internet is fast and cheap. Getting a remote job is a much more sustainable way to live here if you're not fluent in the Russian language. There's also one more path worth mentioning, and that is studying. Enrolling in a Russian university or a language program can get you a student visa, which is a legal way to stay in the country long term. That gives you time to improve your Russian, build local connections here on the ground, and figure out whether life here is really for you. In some cases, studying here can open doors to post-graduation work and eventually permanent residency. So in summary, I would say if you're happy teaching English, great. There's demand, it's very doable and pretty easy to find a job. If you're not and you don't speak Russian, focus on finding remote work instead. And if you want to live here long term and you don't have a job yet, you don't have any connections yet, studying is a smart way in. Just don't come here expecting to find a random job in a cafe or a shop or something like you might in some European country. Russia really doesn't work like that for foreigners. You need a plan and ideally a visa to match it. All right, final question, question number 5. Is it safe to travel around Russia by train as a foreigner? I'm a female, I've traveled solo around Europe, but I'm not sure about visiting Moscow right now. Right, first off, I'll state the obvious. I'm a man, so I've never been a solo female traveller. That means I can't speak from a personal experience on that front, but I can share what I have seen, what I've heard from female friends, and what the general vibe is like here in Russia for travelling. So, travelling by train in Russia is, broadly speaking, very, very safe, even for solo women. Russian railways is reliable and well run. The long distance trains in particular are modern and punctual and comfortable. And when it comes to safety, they've actually got a few things in place that make solo travel more manageable for women. For example, there's the option to book a spot in a women's only compartment. That's available on many overnight trains, and it's a great choice if you're looking for a little more privacy and peace of mind. Alternatively, you can opt for first or second class tickets, both of which typically have fewer people per compartment and offer a quieter, more secure environment. There are also conductors on the trains who regularly walk up and down, and they're generally helpful if you ever need anything or if something feels off to you. You're rarely left alone, really. That said, the usual travel advice obviously applies here in Russia too. Keep your valuables close, don't leave your things unattended in shared spaces, always lock your compartment door from the inside when you're sleeping. Also, I'll have to say, if you're considering a third class ticket, a Platzkart ticket, which is the open plan carriage with no doors, it's a much more communal, no frills experience. It's definitely the most budget friendly, and it can be fun and very, very sociable, but perhaps it's not the best option for someone looking for privacy or quiet. It's not unsafe, definitely not, but it's also not the preferred option for everyone, especially if you want to avoid unwanted attention or you just prefer your own space. So that's about being a woman, but being a foreigner. So on top of that, I actually can speak from experience. I've never had any issues, honestly. In big cities like Moscow or St. Petersburg, you'll see plenty of foreigners. No one bats an eyelid at a foreigner. And honestly, in smaller towns where foreigners are rarer, the reaction is usually curiosity. It's definitely not hostility. Some people might ask where you're from or want to practice their English, but it's generally friendly and low-key. So the bottom line is this. Yes, Russian trains are, in general, safe for solo female travellers. Just use, the same common sense as you'd use anywhere else. If you plan your route, make sure you pick the right compartment. Stay aware of your surroundings, because the train is a brilliant way to see the country, big cities and tiny villages, epic scenery all in one trip. I highly recommend it. If you like this video, please sign up as a paid member of my channel or send me a one-time donation on Buy Me a Coffee. The link is in the description to this video. If you're a Russian, you can subscribe to me on Boosty and pay in rubles. Thank you very much. And that's the end of today's Q&A. If any of these questions from this video sparks more thoughts for you, or you've got something else you'd like to ask, please drop it in the comments or send me a message. I read almost everything. I'm always curious as to what people outside of Russia are wondering about what happens inside Russia. And as always, this isn't the full picture. This is my perspective, my experience, but I hope it's been helpful. If you like this video, please give it a like, share it with someone who might find this useful, and consider subscribing if you want to see more videos about life in Russia from a foreigner who actually lives here. Bye.